and girls, kittens, cats, everybody. We are going to continue where we left off. So I left the hole for my bool in the back of my sub. You know, you kind of have to have a little hole somewhere. I also had I showed you several ways of doing it. I'm gonna cover it. We're gonna do the engine today, and then lastly, I'll do all the pieces, parts like periscope and hatches and tanks and the little details. So the engine is, let's just work with some easy shapes. So I'm gonna use a oil tanker for my engine, and you can see like it fits right in there perfectly. I could probably make it a little bit bigger like that. I think would look a little more interesting. We'll kind of round it out like that. So I'm kind of sealing up the hole in the back there. I don't think it needs to be that big, so we'll scale it down. All right, and then we need like diving plane or rudder and stuff like that. And so, like in that illustration, which is kind of like a visual development sketch, that ain't it. That's Atlantis. You can see like they've added all kinds of little details. It's up to you on how you want to design it. But you need to have like feasibly, like logical things. Even if it's a whimsical, like little cartoony design. I mean, like if I just left it like this, how would it go? How would it move? That kind of thing. I'm going to do some extruding today on the oil tank. So remember, I like to look at it with grout shading and lines so I can see my pieces, parts. And actually the amount I have on the oil tank is fine. So I'm just going to go and convert it under mesh. Remember I said we'd be going here a lot. So when I converted stuff that had deformers in it, I did current state to object. When I just want to make a primitive shape like the oil tank that has nothing else going on, but it's just a primitive shape, I want to turn it into a polygon oil tank. I go make editable, and if you look at the icon right there, it's the same as this icon over here in the corner. That's the shortcut button to doing this right here. So just click on that, and then if you look, it's now a blue polygon oil tank. Alright, and so now that I could go to my polygons tool, and I'm going to select like the middle row here. I think that'll work out. It's not exactly the middle. Close enough though. Actually, let's get both rows and we'll kind of problem solve with that. Alright, so when you extrude stuff, you can do both sides at the same time. You can't really do a symmetry version of it. So sometimes people will model just like half of stuff, and like we did with the dyno last year, and then they'll throw the whole thing into a symmetry to get the other half. Sort of like how I did with the windows. You could do something like that if you wanted to divide this whole oil tank in half, and just model half and then put the halves together. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to extrude them both out. So when we go to, but that's something you could, another way of approaching the problem. We can go to extrude and model out a diving plane. Now, does that look right? No, that looks kind of dorky because it's flaring out with the curvature of the oil tank. So what can we do? We can go to the scale tool up here at the top, and we can just go to the top blue axes and squish it down that way and make it a little bit skinnier. So that looks a little bit better. Let's make it a little bit more aerodynamic. So we'll squish it and then maybe push it back. So sometimes we push polygons around like that, and sometimes we scale them, and all kinds of different stuff. Alright, what else could I have done if I don't like how thick the flare is at the back? So while it's still in this mode, I could have gone to extrude inner. Extrude inner creates a subset of polygons, much smaller, and then I could go to create tools, extrude, and extrude those out, and now it's not as thick, and then I could do, just repeat, like squish them down and squish them in a little bit, and then push them back with the moving tool up here. So go to the moving tool and push them in. All right, so there's my diving planes. Okay, I don't really have any hinges or like flaps like you do on an airplane to show how it works, but then it doesn't really matter that much for that, as opposed to that it just has some diving planes. You know what I mean? What could I put things on the ends of those to make it look cool? I could put all kinds of detail on that. So let's repeat the process for the top. So this would be my rudder. I can kind of see the middle of the oil tank and make sure that I get, like double check, make sure you have the right polygons and stuff. And then if I wanted to, I could repeat that process. I could do extrude inner on that, and then do an extrude. So we're trying to keep this simple. I don't want to get too complicated with it because you guys are just getting back into this and kind of recollecting what you used to know, and I don't want to give you too much advanced stuff to sort of like review of the basics, and then you could take it further if you start remembering and recalling and you're like, I totally remember this stuff. So let's squish this in because it's flaring out to the side because of the curvature, and we just do the same thing to that. I'm just kind of eyeballing it. I don't really care if it's identical, and then maybe I'll push that back a little bit. So there's my sub. If I want to, put any details on that, I can. Let's do our propeller today. We can do it very easily by just maybe a couple of capsules and a cylinder. So let's flip that onto its side. Oops, I'm on my polygons tool, so I gotta go back to my modeling tool, and now I can flip it 90 degrees. I always forget to do that. And we'll kind of make it a little roundish nub. Just sink it in there. Like so. And then I can make this as detailed as I want. I'm kind of really being super simple. Make a cylinder. And notice I haven't moved anything. I've left it where it is. I've only pushed it around by one axis, the green. And in doing so, I've saved myself so much time. I never moved the sub, I never moved the little pill shape, and I never moved the cylinder left or right or up or down. And that way, everything is like lining up perfectly as I build this. Okay? So, heed to that, young children. All right, let's copy that cylinder, and we'll make a little. Oops, I need to do that. Undo. Trying to get to these little dots to resize it. This will be where we attach our propellers to. And maybe we'll copy that. I'm really taking advantage of all these nice primitive shapes to form my propeller. All right, now as far as the propeller goes, I think probably a sphere will do that we squash, just to kind of stay in the so I'm going to give it more segments over here so it has more pieces, parts. Let's double that. All right, and then I'm going to convert that into a polygon sphere, so make editable or click on the tool over here. We're going to making blink on and off. Blink. Alright. Now that it is a polygon sphere, I can squish it. And squash it. I do want it to be twisted though, because you know, like a fan blade, our propeller are typically, you know, they're at an angle to generate the lift and thrust and all that. So I'm going to use a twist deformer. That's new. I haven't used that before. And remember, you want your deformer to kind of conform around your object a little better than I was doing it. And so I'm going to resize the twist deformer, make it a little bit longer, and kind of fit around my box a little bit, or my sphere a little bit better. So the deformer goes into the twist as a child. Remember to put it inside of it. You just click, hold down, touch the word or the one you want to put it into, wait for that little white box and white arrow pointing down to appear, and it goes in it. If you want to move something around in the stack here, like for instance I want the cylinders to be on top of the capsule, then I could just drag them, and when the little white arrow points off to the left like that, that means you're just moving it in the stack. Okay? So pretty easy. And remember, you can drag a box around things to select them, or hold down your command key and select whatever you want to select. And then to deselect, you know, from your menu over here, if you got a bunch of stuff, just click an empty space and I'll deselect it. So it's kind of handy dandy. All right, so let's twist that sphere. So I think that looks a little bit, let's twist it this way, a little bit better as far as a propeller goes. Let's convert it to a shape, so current state to object, and then delete the original. We can call it propeller blade, so we don't, like, you know, because you got all this stuff that this has generic names. If you don't name stuff, eventually it'll bite you in the butt, and you'll be like, man, what's what? And you'll be over here like clicking on stuff trying to figure out what is what. All right, let's shrink that down. Before we turn it into a propeller blade, I want to move the axes, and so this is a good thing to review. We have this axes tool over here, and it'll let you do it on most things, but a lot of primitives it won't, but a polygon shape it will. And you can move the axes, so I'm going to move my axes to the bottom, and then I click off the axes tool, so you click off of it. You gotta remember to do that, otherwise you'll start screwing up axes, because it doesn't like get off of it automatically. You have to manually click off of it. But now when I copy paste this, it'll all rotate from that new axes spot that I gave it at the bottom. So when I put this into position and just kind of stick it into the still a little, is that too big? No, I think that's pretty good. Let's squish it down a little bit. So when I stick it into that part right there, the little cylinder, I want to make sure that also that cylinder is wide enough to handle. So you gotta like always think about proportions and stuff. And all right, so now I'll go back to the propeller blade. Let's put it in position. Oh, you know what? I put it at the, I moved my axes to the wrong part. So I'll go to my axes tool again and fix that by putting it up here. And then now when I want to position this propeller blade, remember to click off your axes tool. I can put it in position. There's usually 3 blades to a propeller. So I'm just going to copy paste. And then copy paste. And it looks like I wasn't perfect. No, actually I think that'll work out pretty good. We'll straighten that out. And we'll straighten, whoops, wrong one. This out. I don't think my propeller center is correct. So where do you think I should center the center of, or like where should I put the axes of the propeller blade? Should it be there at the end of the propeller, or should it be right there in the middle of the axle that turns it around? So, sometimes you gotta figure that stuff out. So I'm gonna go to my axes tool again for one more little quickie review, and I'm gonna, I'll just undo it back to before I screwed it around. Alright, so you can see, like, I put it at the bottom of the propeller blade, but that's not exactly where it should be. Actually, let's move the propeller blade so it's more centered. So you want to get that into position first. Maybe I need to stretch it out after all. There we go. And kind of like center that propeller blades. Sorry, I don't mean to be like axes on the center of this axle, and then make sure the propeller is all in position. Now, when I copy paste it, it should be a little bit better lined up and not look as weird. Okay, and then there'll be one at the top. I don't think I've ever seen a boat propeller with 4 blades, but I suppose that might exist. So now I have like a little putt-putt, little like propeller type of thing. Gotta have sound effects. All right, so I have lots more details I want to put on this. I mean, it's a simple model. We haven't done that much to it. It's not really advanced modeling or anything. We've taken some cheating shortcuts. We've cheated. We've cut corners. We've done whatever we can to get it modeled. But we're getting a lot of review on stuff like, bool and symmetry and your axis tool and your deformers. And that's the whole point of this. Okay, so if you're like, I'm not going to do any of that stuff, then you're really not reviewing anything. So try to do some of those things. Okay. I have lots of more detail that I want to put on here. I want to put a hatch maybe in the front, or put a hatch in the back. I want to put a periscope and an antenna and some oxygen tanks and maybe a grabby claw and a searchlight and a torpedo or a harpoon or something. I don't know if I want to put a harpoon on there. Harpoons were like for whaling, and I'm totally against whaling, and so that was cruel and evil that people killed the nice whales for the useless stuff like perfume. So I don't think I'll put a harpoon on there after all. I think I'll put a grabby claw, so it's more of a Jacques Cousteau research submarine. Okay, so what do I want to do here? Because I'm going to animate that spinning around. So the last thing here is I want to take everything that makes up the propeller, and that would be just the cap. There wouldn't be that capsule. It would be that capsule, this cylinder, that cylinder, and all those blades. And here's a good review thing. How do I put all those together? Well, the long way would be to go make a create null object, and then take all those things and put them in the null object as children. That's one way of doing it, and sometimes that's the best way of doing it. But in this case, I'm going to take that capsule, which is the little nubby part at the end, that cylinder, and then my 3 propeller blades and all the other stuff there. I don't need the end piece there, and I want to lock them together. So there's an option under objects here in the menu bar of the right there of the objects palette, And you're going to go to group objects, and then that lets you lock them together. So it's like a shortcut to doing it the long way that I just showed. And then we can rename it. Propeller. I think I'm spelling that right. If I'm not, then whatever. And so now when I'm ready to animate this whole thing, the null object already has like a center perfectly, like it already has an axis perfect in the center. So I can just like rotate this around to animate that when it's time to, you know, make our submarine do stuff. All right, so there's our propeller. And then on our engine and whatever other details I want to put on there. So that ends part 3. See you in class.